Alrighty then, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names and kicking candy ass. Live in the color here with you on Grande's Graveyard. And welcome back to another edition of the show. This is week number 2, the middle week, yes, of horror movie Burnout. And this week we are doing an old school actors spotlight. I do really love to do these despite the fact that I've only done 3 before this. Of course, we've done the top 10 films of one, Mr. Robin Williams, my all-time favorite, Mr. Kurt Russell, probably my second all-time favorite, John Candy, who was voted in by the subscribers, listeners, and followers of Grande's Graveyard. And now we did another poll. We did Chris Tucker versus the guest of honor, the man that will be counting down his films here today, and that is Mr. Jim Carrey. Yes, Jim Carrey. Tonight we will take a live actors spotlight / top 10 performance countdown on the show as we dive deep into the life, career, the man, the myth, the legend that is Jim Carrey. So I'm super excited tonight to, talk all things actors spotlight, to talk all things Jim Carrey. I've got to be honest, this was a tough list to put together because Jim Carrey has done so many wonderful films over the years. And you look at even the first year that he started really getting noticed in mainstream film, 1994, he had not one, not two, but 3 all-time classics come out in the year 1994. Ace Ventura, The Mask, and then Dumb and Dumber, respectively, all in a row in 1994. It's incredible how many great movies he came out with just in that one year. And that's really the year that he bloomed and blossomed and then became the big star that we all know and remember and love today. And, it's funny. I wanted to kind of take a step back and hop in the old time machine and kind of give you guys a little bit of a background as to, some of Jim Carrey's past stuff, before he became famous, before he became, the household name that he is. I figured I'd get a little bit into his background, and then I guess we'll go right into the top 10 performance list. And like I said, it was not an easy list to make, but we'll get there when we get there. Of course, Slasher Fred's in the house. Alrighty then. Yeah, of course, Ace Ventura. That's what he's calling out here. But all right, so I figure we get back into the history of Jim Carrey first. Where did Jim Carrey kind of originate? And of course, he was a class clown in his hometown, and he would always disrupt class. And the teacher actually told him, hey, if you do all your work and you're respectful and you don't bother your other students, I will give you 15 minutes at the end of the day to do whatever you want to do. Try to entertain people, make people laugh, do your impressions. And that's what Jim Carrey initially wanted to be. He wanted to be the man of 1,000 faces. It's similar to pro wrestling. There were guys like Dean Malenko who claimed, I'm the man of 1,000 holds, and then there was guys like Chris Jericho, I'm the man of 1,004 holds. Jim Carrey really wanted to be the man of 1,000 faces, and he claims to this day that he only reached up to about 150. But it's really cool that he started from just being the class clown, and then of course his dad was fired from his job when he was just the age of 12 years old. They were living out of a van, and Jim Carrey was encouraged by his own father to go and try the comedy shop, where he went and started performing, stand-up acts and live impressions. And this is where he started to get noticed, a little bit more and more by guys like Louis Anderson, who Louis Anderson actually said Jim Carrey was the greatest impressionist of all time. And he had said he had seen them all. He had seen your Gene Wilders, your Richard Pryors, your Eddie Murphys. He said that nobody came close to a Jim Carrey. And that's where he really started to establish his name in the comedic world, and thus led to him getting his lead, I guess, token white guy job on a little show called In Living Color from the mid 80s. And of course, David Alan Grier and the Wayans brothers. And In Living Color was almost like a way more hip Saturday Night Live. And in an era where after Eddie Murphy had left Saturday Night Live definitely had a couple of down years, and that's where In Living Color kind of shined, and they had this whole ratings battle. Now, Saturday Night Live probably won that ratings battle, but I think In Living Color was one of those shows that really, was hip and started a lot of different things at that time. It was really the show that it was needed at the time for the television stations, if you will. I think In Living Color was just a really important show. And of course, all the great talent I mentioned, the Wayans brothers and David Alan Grier. Jim Carrey was also rejected from Saturday Night Live, and that's where he got the job on In Living Color, and he created so many wonderful, hence the term colorful characters. Of course, a lot of people remember, Fire Marshal Bill and the face that Jim Carrey would make and all the funny, memorable segments. Jim Carrey really made a name for himself on that show as this kind of side character, and just every week he would be one of the people that would shine the brightest, one of the stars, one of the many stars in that show that would shine brighter and brighter. And then of course into 1994, when he made, like I said, three classic movies all in the same year, and became probably the hottest celebrity, hottest actor, comedic star that there was for a good 10-year period. And that's what's really cool about Jim Carrey. He really started from those humble beginnings of just, the 12-year-old boy, the class clown, and, in poverty, and, went from middle, lower class to just absolutely poor. And then of course put on all of these shows in class and in the comedy shop, and just organically grew and got over with people. And the fact that he would really commit himself to these roles is a really big reason why I really want to get into Jim Carrey here tonight. So that's a little bit of his background. We got some comments. Mateo's in the chat. All righty then, Grande. No chow this week. Truman Show, Eternal Sunshine, and Batman, great performances. Also, I'd like to mention I Love You, Philip Morris, Burt Wonderstone, Almost Forgot, CA. I'm an honorary Canadian, I think, but you're those three that you mentioned literally might be my top three. So we'll get there. Yes, love Jim Carrey. Rainbow, what's up, Rainbow? Exactly about the faces he stared at himself in mirrors for hours, making different faces. Yeah, and he was able to make every single one of them feel completely different. And that's really hard to do. But Jim Carrey is just once in a lifetime kind of talent. He had a few small roles. He was in the underrated sci-fi movie Earth Girls Are Easy. Of course, he was also in Once Bitten, in a role that really didn't fit him. You can do what you want to do. Let me show you something. In Living Color had a very young Jennifer Lopez. Yes, In Living Color had, like I said, an amazing, array of talent and rising stars, but none that are remembered probably more than a Jim Carrey was. And I guess we can get underway with our list. I told you this was a tough list to make. I will be very honest. There's some that I had a hard time leaving off. And I guess I have to break Mateo's heart early. I Love You, Philip Morris did not make the list. The Majestic, even though I know Jim Carrey apparently hates it, did not make the list. Although I do really like the movie. I think it's just a little too long. There's a couple Jim Carrey movies that I wish had made the list. The Grinch, another one where I don't know if I like the movie as much as I like Jim Carrey in the movie. And I really looked at this list a lot more of top 10 performances as opposed to top 10 movies. Because if I did top 10 movies, it could be overshadowed a little bit. Like, I'll be honest, there's one that would never have made it if I did top 10 movies, but I do think it's a top 10 Carrey performance. And I figured it's more about him than it is about the movie, because it's more about the actor spotlight than opposed to the movies that the actor was in. I guess that's kind of the mentality I went about here. But we can jump right into this list. Everybody, cheers. I drank my waters already. I had 2 waters down here while I was show prepping, and I drank them both. So I'm sorry about that. So I don't have nothing to hold up, but cheers to you all. Cheers to a wonderful Thursday night on the Graveyard. And we're going to jump right in to number 10. This is from the year 2004, I believe. This is Bruce Almighty. Yes. What if God was one of us, just a stranger on a bus, and that's the way the cookie crumbles? Yes, Bruce Almighty. Now, Bruce Almighty, it was the Bubble Boy, I guess the last one to kind of make its money here and make the list. Like I said, there was a few movies that did not make it. The Grinch, The Majestic, those are the first 2 that kind of come to mind about movies that didn't make this. And I really, really like this movie. I think, and a lot of the reason for that is because of Jim Carrey. Of course, it's directed by Tom Shadyac, and Tom Shadyac had directed, Jim Carrey in movies like Liar Liar and the movies like Bruce Almighty, and those 2 work together a lot over the years. And I really like Tom Shadyac and Jim Carrey's kind of connection with each other. Of course, this tells the story. I have the brief plot synopsis here. Let me get down to it. A whiny news reporter is given the chance to step into God's shoes. Yes, of course, the whole idea of this down on his luck news reporter who really wants to be the lead anchor. Of course, it's given to his arch nemesis, played by Steve Carell in this film. And he is on a live broadcast, his first live broadcast, and basically tells the whole company and studio to go fuck themselves live on the air under Niagara Falls. And then, of course, he's just having an awful day. He sees this bum being made fun of, and he has all these choice of words to say for God. Oh, smite me, mighty smiter. And God is a mean kid with a magnifying glass on an anthill, killing all the little ants. And he has all these choice of words to say about God and how he thinks he could be a better God than the God that we already have. And then, of course, he comes into contact with Morgan Freeman, who actually is, the classic, I am God. He has that classic line in this. And at first, he's this guy mopping the floor. Then he's the guy fixing the light. And then I am God. He's doing everything. It's kind of the story they're trying to paint here. And, Morgan Freeman says to him, hey, if you think you could do a better job than me, by all means, go for it. And then, of course, we kind of step into the shoes of Jim Carrey as he becomes Christ himself, and we see this movie kind of play out. At first, it's kind of funny. Of course, he's using it for all of his own self benefits. He's having, more hardcore sex with his girlfriend. He's pulling the moon in for her. He doesn't want to deal with any of the prayers, so he just decides, hey, I'll just say yes to everything. And then, of course, once he starts saying yes to everything, of course, everyone's going to win the lottery and everyone's going to get their way. And you really have to go through each thought and each prayer, and you kind of, for this movie, you get a sense of what it would be like if you were the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And it's a lot of fun because Jim Carrey really brings this to life. I think in the hands of another actor, this really could have been kind of forgettable, but I think Jim Carrey makes it so memorable. Of course, you have the classic scene in the diner where instead of parting the seas, he parts the soup. And these mean, this gang that beats him up before, he says, oh, I think this monkey's going to crawl up your ass. And of course, it comes out of his ass, goes back up his ass. Hilarious stuff. And, you have the classic, I got the power, where he's doing all these kind of, God tricks, if you will. And I am Bruce Almighty, Lord, on the top of the freaking Seattle pencil, if you will. Just really cool kind of visuals in this movie. And he's even making his news reports more entertaining as he's interviewing this boring lady. He makes a meteorite crash to Earth. And then that's the way the cookie crumbles. He kind of writes it all so he can make his own life better. But what he kind of learns in the meantime is it's not really all about himself. It's really all about helping others. And that's what being God is. It's really about, answering the prayers that do matter the most and doing your job. And he learns that kind of life lesson as this movie goes on. And I think Bruce Almighty is really a prime candidate for a top 10 Jim Carrey list. And I'll mention this as the night goes on. It's physical comedy as much with Jim Carrey as it is with line delivery. And what do I mean by that? There's a great scene where Jennifer Aniston, who plays his girlfriend in this, pulls the covers off him. And just the way he contorts his body as he doesn't want to get up for work. That's all Jim Carrey, man. It's the physical actor that he is. Just, adds so much more, in my opinion, to the guy on paper because he is a great line delivery. He can do serious. He can do dramatic. But I think a lot of the physical humor he kind of invokes from the viewer is really, really special. And I think that it's shown a lot in this movie, Bruce Almighty. Let's see. Jim Carrey was also in Deadpool, which was the final installment in the famous Dirty Harry franchise. Yes, rewatched this one recently. Me too. I rewatched for So Proud. So glad this one made on the list. It was close. I got to be honest. The Majestic was very close, but I know he hated playing that role. Funny enough, I believe that was directed by Frank Darabont. And Frank Darabont, of course, from The Green Mile and, Shawshank Redemption. That was the movie he did after those two. And while the movie doesn't stand up to either one that I just mentioned, I do think Jim Carrey is quite good in the movie. But I don't know. Jim Carrey said he was apparently stoned when he accepted the role for that. The bit of Steve Carell reading the news gets me every time. Oh, and my nipples went to France. And, he's making him say all these horrible things on the air. And, and I like to do the cha-cha. I mean, it's absolutely hysterical, man. And I like the, when they're jabbing each other back and forth. Hey, Evan, you like jazz? Playing the trumpet for him and flipping the guy off. Just really funny. And, I can't hear you, just really good stuff. It was nice to see those two interact with one another. And this is really right before Steve Carell kind of took off. I believe maybe the 40-Year-Old Virgin, it might have even been the same year or the following year. It was right before Steve Carell kind of took off. So it was kind of cool to see them, interacting in this movie. Ryan Snyder's in the house. What's up, good brother? Hope all is well with you tonight. I think what makes Bruce Almighty such a great movie is that Bruce finds out being the big man in charge is no easy picnic. No, not at all. Even though the whole beginning of the film, he's really just knocking it, because he just wants the world really to revolve around him. And once he has the power to have the world revolve around him, and of course you see this whole, poster, you have the world literally on a yo-yo. It's the world is his. He learns the responsibilities and he becomes a better person because of it. And I really like the scene where he kind of learns that, what he's doing, it has a bigger purpose, is where, he at first brushes off Morgan Freeman. He says, I'll help you mop the floors of the 7th at 7, and Morgan Freeman goes, 7th at 7 it is. And then he's mopping the floor. And then he follows through with the promise, and the two of them kind of mopping the floors together, and Morgan Freeman kind of telling him, you realize now, do you see it now? I only did this to benefit you and help you and make you realize, and I love the chemistry those two had. Morgan Freeman and Jim Carrey had wonderful chemistry in this movie, even when it's funny, and then when it gets more dramatic towards the end. I really like those two together. Born in Newmarket, Ontario, 20 minutes from my hood, Jim Carrey is a fucking legend. The Mask and Liar Liar, those are both on the list. Mearnsey Movie Mansion, welcome. Triple M, welcome. Hope all is well. My others favorites, Fun with Dick and Jane. I watch it often. Truman Show, Liar Liar, Me, Myself, and Irene, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, The Number 23, The Cable Guy, and Yes Man. I gotta be honest, some of those will be on the list. Some of them will not be on the list, but we're going to dive right in. Like I said, it's going to be a fun show. So hope all is well with everybody. He's the Elastic Man, an incredible actor. He really is. It's incredible what he could do with physical comedy. In The Mask, Stanley mimics Harry Callaghan, which is very iconic because he appeared in the Dirty Harry films, The Deadpool Rainbow. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I had to have Bruce Almighty on this list. This was the toughest spot. I came with the first 7 easy, and then the last 3 spots were rather tough, and then ranking them was even tougher. But Bruce Almighty, I felt, was definitely deserving of being on the list. So Bruce Almighty comes in at the number 10 slot. I really am a big fan of that one. So we can move on, though, into our number 9 slot, as I'm going to share the screen here. We had this thing last week where I guess it kind of builds the suspense. But this is funny enough from another film from Tom Shadyac from the year 1997. This is Liar Liar. Yes, Liar Liar from the year 1997. A pathological liar / lawyer finds his career turned upside down when he cannot inexplicably lie for 24 straight hours. Yes, Liar Liar. Of course, this tells the story of Jim Carrey. He is this hotshot, up-and-coming lawyer, and he's not losing any cases. He's Mr. Bullshit, if you will. He comes in the office and tells people all of the things that they want to hear. This one woman who has this wild sense of fashion. Oh, you look great today. Did you do something different with that new dress? Of course, he tells a fat guy that he's working out, and he pretends to remember people's names that he doesn't remember. He is really, truly Mr. Bullshit. And the thing that he does love that isn't bullshit more than anything in the world is his son. And his son basically wants him to be in his life more. And one night he says, hey, I'm going to be at your birthday, kid. Don't worry about it. He basically brushes the son off to have sex with this woman that can improve his career. He doesn't show. And the kid, when he finally gets to wish on his birthday candles, wishes that for 24 hours, Jim Carrey, his father, cannot tell a lie. And of course, for a Mr. Bullshitter, for a fucking defense attorney, this is going to arise all sorts of fun problems and kind of wild, crazy antics that kind of play out throughout this film. And Liar Liar to me is one of Jim Carrey's shining moments. And it's really considered his big bounce back film after The Cable Guy unfortunately bombed. Of course, people don't remember, and I won't lie, Cable Guy's on the list, and it's higher. I actually like Cable Guy more than this movie. Cable Guy was a huge flop at the time, and a lot of people knocked Jim Carrey for the amount of money he made for that film. He made about $20 million, which is crazy. To play a cable man with a lisp is $20 million paycheck. That's wild. But also, the movie grossed only like $60 million. It was considered a bomb. And a lot of people said, oh my God, this is the first bomb from Jim Carrey. What will he do to kind of follow this up? And he partnered back up with Tom Shadyac, who of course started his career in the big cinema and making him a star with Ace Ventura. You look at this movie here, Liar Liar, this was his big bounce back movie. And Jim Carrey is absolutely just money in this. I just think Jim Carrey is wonderful. Like I said, again, with a lot of the physical humor, and Jordan fades back, swish, and that's the game. No further questions, Your Honor. And the scene where he has to kick his own ass. I'm kicking my own ass. Do you mind? And he's slamming the toilet bowl on himself, and he's in the elevator, and it was me, just hysterical. And then of course all the people he bullshit at the beginning, and do you like my dress? Whatever keeps the attention away from your head, and hey, what's up, buddy? Your cholesterol, and you're not important enough to remember, and all of these things. I mean, he's just being brutally honest. He went from bullshit Liar Liar to I can't do anything but tell the truth. And all of the amazing scenes of his physical comedy in this, and the pen is blue. The pen is blue. The goddamn pen is blue. He has blue written all over his face because he's trying to say that the pen is red. He's trying to tell a lie, and he cannot bring himself to do it. Of course, the other person that's against him, and you have anything to say? And he can't quite spit it out, and and I can't say nothing, just hysterical. His physical performance in this, there's no other human being on God's green earth that could fucking do it. He really is one of his brightest performances because it's all him. And I've heard people say that there are roles that Jim Carrey did that other actors could have done. This is one in particular. There's nobody that could have done Liar Liar as good as Jim Carrey. Nobody. There really isn't. And to the point where I believe, and people will disagree, and some people may even have this on their list, Yes Man is very similar to this movie. Yes Man, of course, came out 2008. It's a very similar movie where instead of I can't lie, he has to say yes to everything. And that's not the movie where he can't say no. He just chooses to say yes to everything, and his life takes a dramatic turn. To me, that's when they tried to really recapture this gold. And it's a good movie, but it's not Liar Liar. This is a way more fun, hysterical movie, and it's all because of Jim Carrey. I mean, Jim Carrey really sells this. How you doing? I'm just recovering from a bad sexual episode. It'll happen more and more. The judge is being like completely monotone to the whole thing, and of course, who could forget the roast? You're just a pedantic, steaming pile of cow dung. Figuratively speaking, Simmons is old. He comes to these things because he can't stand his wife. She's the one in the back always calling him a retard. You have bad breath caused by gingivitis. Slut! Just going around the room roasting all of them. And I can't, you're such a big brown nose. I can't tell where you start and he begins. And just hysterical, man. Only Jim Carrey could have made this work as well as it does. And the film has a nice heart to it, of course, as I see someone here, Maximilian, and I'm Jose Canseco. I love the heart and the kind of dynamic he has with his son in the movie. I've heard people shit on the son over the years saying he's not a good actor. Maybe, I don't know. I never quite thought of much of it in this movie. Of course, you have Carrie Elways from horror fans remember from Saw, and other fans remember from Robin Hood Men in Tights, and of course Princess Bride, but he's also in this. And I don't know, I like the whole ensemble cast. I think Jennifer Tilly's a lot of fun in this. It's one of those movies that to me you can watch it over and over and never get sick of it. It's a absolute illustrious Jim Carrey title is Liar Liar. I love this one. Liar Liar coming in at the number 9 slot. So let's get back to comments here. I see we have a ton. I think we were here. The unfaithful woman that defends in the movie is, if I'm correct, wasn't Bride of Chucky. That is Jennifer Tilly. You are absolutely correct. He is amazing as Jeff Pickles in Kidding. Tom, welcome to the show. That is a fantastic show. It's funny. I would have liked to have maybe reviewed that at some point. Maybe at one point I'll do that. I'll review a season of Kidding. I believe they only did 2 seasons, right? And I thought it was quite a good show. Plot of Liar Liar. Yes, that's true. The whole truth. And it's a lot better movie than it was. That was an episode. Give him more money. See, yeah, I agree. I think the guy is worth every penny. That's the thing. Like when you're truly that talented, you are worth every penny to play a $20 million cable guy. That's kind of how I see it. Liar Liar is one of the best comedy performances. Underrated. Completely agree. Welcome. The Black Mask Butcher. He's so fucking mesmerizing. He really is. He's the man. The boob girl. Yeah, of course. And mama stuff. Everyone's just been so nice. Well, it's probably because you have ginormous tits. You have an amazing rack. Your boobs are huge. Mama, and she smacks him in the face. It's just hysterical. A pot mark eventually. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yes. I'm kicking my own ass. Do you mind? And the way he kicks his ass, there's no stuntman in the world that could have made that more convincing than Jim Carrey. A pathetic man desperate at the last inch of his rope. That's who did this. Yeah, exactly. I love how he wins the case too. On the technicality, and then he feels dirty about it. I hold myself in contempt. Just great energy. 6 more Spider-Man movies. What do you mean? Italian Goodfellas in the house. LO, yes. Case 1, he got his family back. Lessons were learned. Absolutely. Completely agree. Maximilian. Trenchy's in the house. Hey, what's up, good brother? Jim Carrey at his most suburban. Okay, that's a good way to look at it. Movie hasn't aged. Yeah, totally. Liar Liar is good. I agree. I love Liar Liar. To me, it definitely Slam dunk, kind of had to make this list. This next one, I could lose some of you. I don't know if I like this movie as much as I like his performance in it. If I did a top 10 Jim Carrey movies, this next movie would not make my list. I'll be honest with you. This is kind of an interesting, because usually when you do a top 10, you love every movie. This is a movie where I don't know if I'm quite the biggest fan of, and it is from the year 1999, directed by Milos Forman. This is Man on the Moon. Yes, where, of course, Jim Carrey portrayed the legendary comedic slash entertainer, Mr. Andy Kaufman. Now, I don't get me wrong. It's not a bad film by any stretch of the imagination. And I like Milos Forman, and I like the cast. I like Danny DeVito. I really like Paul Giamatti, who, of course, he was in Truman Show in such a small role. In this, he gets a bigger role as Andy Kaufman's writer. I don't know how much I like this movie. I do feel the movie's a little long, and it definitely suffers. I feel like the last half hour of the movie is quite good. But where it really shines is Jim Carrey's performance. I think Jim Carrey as Andy Kaufman's fantastic, and he did method acting here. And what I mean by that is he really never broke character on the set. He was Andy Kaufman the minute he got there, from the minute he went home. And thus, a lot of people consider Jim Carrey to be an asshole while working on this film with him. Of course, the famous story from Jerry the King Lawler and Jim Ross, they said when they were doing the wrestling scenes, they said that he's just pretending to be Andy Kaufman. And Jerry Lawler worked with Andy Kaufman in the whole, wrestling storyline, and of course in Memphis and in the 1970s. And, he said that Andy Kaufman wasn't like that. Andy Kaufman was the nicest guy in the world. And, when the cameras came on, that's when the character came out, not when the cameras were off. So I definitely think that, maybe the method acting wasn't the right call here for Jim Carrey. But then again, the performance is fantastic. And he really, channeled Andy Kaufman in this film. And the fact that Andy Kaufman did not consider himself a comedian, he considered himself an entertainer. He didn't like sitcoms, Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman thought sitcoms were cheap. He thought they were lazy. He thought they were the lowest form of entertainment that there was out there. And I got to say that I understand the whole Andy Kaufman argument, but I think that Jim Carrey as this character did a really good job. And he doesn't want to take the Latka role. He resents it. He wants, to do things spontaneously and to do things to put on a show and to get people to think that their TV is malfunctioning. I like the whole idea of Andy Kaufman humor, but I don't know if I consider Andy Kaufman humor my cup of tea. And that's the whole point of it. It's abstract humor. It's abstract entertainment. I think if Andy Kaufman was here, he'd say, no, it's entertainment that's abstract. And Jim Carrey really got that here, because it's not the funniest Jim Carrey performance. It's not supposed to be the funniest Jim Carrey performance. It's really just a biopic on this guy's life, and he was a weird cat. But Jim Carrey does, I think, a very good job in the role. I don't know if people are going to agree with me here. I know there's some people that consider Man on the Moon like a top 3 Jim Carrey movie. I think the performance is a top 10. I don't think the movie is anywhere near the top. I would take The Majestic over this. I would take The Grinch over this. I would take Me, Myself, and Irene over this. I would take Dumb and Dumber over this. So many movies I would take over it. But the performance itself, I think, had to make the list. It's an important performance, I think, in his career. But let's get back to comments. Let's see what you guys think. Dumb and Dumber is probably the best Jim Carrey film. It's on the list, no worries. Sub Graveyard Ghouls. Oh, welcome, Mr. Sean Blue Digital. Grande, you're so right. Performance much better than the movie. That's my thing. Like, I rewatched this, and I'm sitting there, I'm like about an hour and a half in. I'm like, man, this movie is really, it drags. Like, it's not very entertaining movie. And I don't know who's to blame. Is it Milos Forman? Is it Andy Kaufman himself that you could, because he's supposed to be the greatest entertainer. It's not really an entertaining movie. There's a love angle with Courtney Love where she does a terrible job in this movie. I do not like her as an actress at all. Just not believable. I think the movie had a nice message towards the end. Like the last half hour of it, I think the movie has a nice heart to it when he tells them I'm sick and they're all singing at his funeral. I like that. I just think the movie itself is really carried by Jim Carrey's performance. That's kind of where Jim Carrey, he carried this movie. I thought you were going to say number 23 for a good role, but not top 10 movie. That's one of those movies I want to like more than I do. And I guess spoiler, it did not make the list. I would probably even say Man on the Moon I like more than the number 23. That's one of those movies where I watched it and I was like, holy shit, Jim Carrey doing sort of a thriller / horror movie. I'm so in. And then I watched the movie and I just thought it was so kind of dumb. I thought that was a rather lame film. Danny DeVito was also in Taxi. Yes, Danny DeVito is fantastic in this. And, Christopher Lloyd and Judd Hirsch, all the people that were in Taxi kind of reprised their roles, bit roles in this, but it's nice to see all of them. And I don't know. I think his performance is solid here. John, did you know that originally the writer wanted Carrey to be in it before Ferrell for Elf? I did not know that. And, he would have pulled that off. I think that was Will Ferrell's big moment, though. And I think that's Will Ferrell's best movie. Oh, I don't like Man on the Moon because it's not a good representation of Andy Kaufman, one of my favorite comedian life, and skips over a lot of things and is just kind of meh at best. I would agree. It's a meh at best film. Like, I love the pro wrestling stuff because I used to be a big pro wrestling fan, and I love the whole idea of that Andy Kaufman really understood how to become a heel. I won't wrestle those big, strong ones that can beat me up. I'm going to wrestle the women and beat the shit out of them for a shoot. And then, of course, the whole David Letterman thing that I love. But in the film, it's not as fun as it was in watching the old school tapes. And I don't know how to explain it. It just wasn't as fun in this movie as it could have been to me. Did you watch the Netflix doc about it? He went off the fucking edge for this film. He crushed it, but truly, this was a very misunderstood film. Yeah, no, he did. They did. That's right. They made a documentary basically about how much of a pain in the ass he was to be on the set of this film. And he did win the Golden Globe, I believe, for Best Actor. And rightfully so. I just don't know. Like you said, it's a misunderstood film. It maybe even be a misunderstood performance at times. But I do think it's important because it was one of the more dramatic roles that he got recognized for. And I definitely thought it had to be on this list here tonight. It's one of those, I tell you, like I said, if I did top 10 movies, this would not have made it. It totally would have had a Me, Myself, and Irene over this, but performances, I had to put it on here. Agreed. And Jim Carrey pretending to be possessed by Andy Kaufman was a dick move and kind of soured me to him. Wow. Okay. So you take offense to this performance. I don't think he understood Kaufman. That could be a good point. I don't even know if I understand Andy Kaufman. That's how different of a guy Andy Kaufman was. I don't consider the stuff on Taxi, I think, is funny. I like sitcoms, but his whole mentality was I don't like sitcoms and the whole, what's his name? The singer that he plays. I can't think of his damn name, but Tony Clifton. I'm Tony Clifton. That shit doesn't make me laugh at all, but some people find that a riot. I don't know. Maybe I don't even understand Andy Kaufman. Maybe who does, but I guess that's Andy Kaufman's legacy. Jim Carrey and Danny DeVito have been in the Batman franchise together, Penguin and the Riddler. Very cool, very cool. Hello, Trenchy. I agree with you on number 23. Sounds good reading the synopsis, but drags as a movie. Yeah, and of course, Joel Schumacher. I love Joel Schumacher as a filmmaker, and I really wanted to like that movie, but I just didn't like it. I don't know. Maybe I will say it's not one I rewatched for this. Like performance wise, I rewatched pretty much 9 or 10 movies for this. I almost rewatched all of them over the span of a week. So I didn't get to that one because I do think that's a flat movie. Maybe his performance is okay, but I wouldn't say in the top 10 of his performances. But Man on the Moon, I would say is, even though all of the controversy, even the fact that the documentary was made for the whole thing, I do think it is a nice performance. I would have to agree with Trench is, who knows, maybe he didn't understand Andy Kaufman. That's what Jerry Lawler was basically saying in the interview when he was like, I knew Andy Kaufman. This motherfucker was nothing like that guy. So that's in a lot of ways kind of a, oh my gosh, if someone who knew him says this, who knows? I don't know if Danny DeVito has ever spoken out about it. I would like to hear what Danny says because Danny knew him personally and even wanted to play this role because of his love for Andy Kaufman. So I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have it on the list. I felt it should be, though. I do think it's a good performance, and all the bullshit he went through to make it work, I felt had to be mentioned here. So that is Man on the Moon at number 8. In Living Color, OMG, the Juice Weasel or Fire Marshal Bill, fucking hilarious. Oh my God. Oh, hysterical, man. Absolutely. All the characters he created on that show was just truly mesmerizing, man. He was really that show showed you that he was going to be one of the brightest stars moving forward. And the next movie we have up here, of course, is one of my all-time favorites, and it is none other than the year 1995. This is Batman Forever. Yes, Batman Forever. I'll get the little poster up here. This is one that it's a biased pick. I don't even know how long I could really stay on this one because I've talked about it so many times on this channel, but I'll do brief plot synopsis. Batman must battle former district attorney Harvey Dent, who is now Two-Face, and Mr. Edward Nygma, the Riddler, with the help of an amorous psychologist and a young circus acrobat who becomes his sidekick, Robin. Yes, Batman Forever. Now, this was, like I said, at the time where Jim Carrey had been blown up on the scene and he'd become, we got to get Jim Carrey and everything. And that's basically where they wanted him to become a Batman villain. Of course, we were going to phase out Tim Burton. We're going to phase out Michael Keaton. We bring in Val Kilmer. We bring in Joel Schumacher. And we bring in Jim Carrey to be the lead villain in this. Of course, sort of channeling the old school Frank Gorshin role of the Riddler, Mr. Edward Nygma. And I really like the performance of Jim Carrey. I have heard people say this is his weakest performance. And a lot of people say that he was trying to be the Joker more so than he was trying to be the Riddler. I have a big gripe with people who say that. If you feel that way, you did not watch the Frank Gorshin Riddler on the Adam West show. The Frank Gorshin Riddler was very fun and over the top, just like Jim Carrey was here. And just like I said about before with the physical humor, there's a lot of that in this. When he's destroying the Batcave and throwing all of these explosives and making fucking pelvic thrusts to the explosives, it's hysterical. Only, like I said, only Jim Carrey could pull that off. And, oh, no, you can't kill him, because if you kill him, he won't learn nothing. And the laughy, ha, 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 the crazy Jim Carrey laugh in this, just a lot of fun. Of course, Jim Carrey playing the, down in his luck, goofy, nerdy clerksman that works in Wayne Enterprises. Oh, Bruce Wayne, shakes his hand and, what's on all our minds? Brainwaves. He's trying to sell the whole thing of brainwaves to him. And I always really liked it. I thought it was kind of a fun performance, of course, of the whole, Zero becoming not hero, but Zero becoming a villain. And of course, he, with all of this mind control, starts to take over the world one box at a time. And I always loved the monologue Jim Carrey has at the end of this. It's feeding me sexual fantasies and the little white lies, credit card numbers, and all this, the kind of rant, the spiel of the villain is just wonderful in this. I really like Jim Carrey. I think he does a really good job in this. And he very much overshadowed his co-star, of course, Tommy Lee Jones, who hated him. And of course, the whole story got out that Tommy Lee Jones hated Jim Carrey and said that he could not sanction his buffoonery. Yet he acted the same exact way in this film. So it makes no sense to me what he couldn't sanction. I believe that he was sort of jealous that Jim Carrey was the star, right? Because Two-Face may have been the lead villain, and Harvey Dent, of course, and Tommy Lee Jones, a big name. It's a big actor. But you bring in Jim Carrey as the Riddler, you just had to have him be the lead villain here. And I think it made perfect sense because Jim Carrey, like I said, he was white hot at the time. And I think Tommy Lee Jones resented that. But I do think the two had incredible chemistry. Few people can pull off a summer and a winter, but you do it quite well. And let's see if you bleed green. And when they're playing Battleship with each other, trying to murder Robin, oh, you sunk my battleship. Who, me? The two of them laughing. And it's a really nice, grand performance from Jim Carrey because he does tap into a little bit of the darkness that it takes to play the villain. Of course, he murders one person, this guy that works above him, and surfs up, big kahuna. And, he does tap into a little bit of that darkness. But I definitely think that, he brings the comedic elements here and a lot of the fun elements too to make this feel like a comic book movie. And I always loved towards the final act where they do the close-up, the extreme close-up, just like the old school Adam West cartoons. And now the real game begins. Just amazing. I really think Jim Carrey brought a great energy to this film. And I know that he and Val Kilmer, I believe, became very close friends on the set of this movie. And I liked their kind of dynamic between hero and villain and the whole scene towards the end where Val Kilmer says, I've got a riddle for you. And Jim, really? Tell me. And I am blind without seeing. What am I? Please, you're as blind as a bat. And Jim Carrey, all the mind control and losing that stuff. I think Jim Carrey was wonderful here. To me, this is a very misunderstood film. It's an old school Adam West Batman episode that's 2 hours long, has a budget of over $100 million, and has everybody kind of giving it their all and kind of going over the top. Even Jim Carrey says, was that over the top? I can never tell. He's very over the top in this movie. And this jacket keeps me safe when I'm jogging at night. I think he's just great in this. Who would be the Dark Knight's junior partner or Bruce's love? It's just great. I think Jim Carrey did a great job in this. This is a childhood favorite of mine. Call this a biased pick. I mean, this is a movie that would probably not make a lot of people's list. But personally, I don't know. I love Batman Forever. To me, Batman Forever had to make the list here. on Grande's Graveyard here tonight. So Batman Forever comes in at number 7. More of a biased pick, I guess, but I guess it's my list too. Yeah, like Carrey as an actor, but yeah, that did sour him to me a little bit. I can't lie. No, you're not alone. I know a lot of people that hate that movie, hate that performance, and maybe so. I don't know. Riddle me with Def Need the Vinyl Wicked soundtrack. Yeah, no, I love it, man. His Riddler was so much fun. If only Tommy Lee Jones played the Two-Face as cold as his role in The Fugitive to encounter Carrey's wackiness, it could have been way better. Yeah, maybe it could have. I will say this: my dream commentary. And Jim Carrey doesn't do a lot of commentaries. I believe the only movie he ever did a commentary for was Cable Guy. And that was in the contract, right? Because it was such an expensive paycheck for him, a $20 million paycheck to play a cable man with a lisp. But my dream commentary would be Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones on this movie, because I know Tommy Lee Jones hated him. I would love to hear the two of them just talk about this film. Like, I would absolutely pay dumb money for that commentary. And just, the scenes where he's even teaching him how to punch people, like, it's real simple, my boy. You just pull up the fist, reach way back, and assert yourself. All right, roll up the fist, way back, and assert. Ow! Jim Carrey's playing the total pussy heel in this, and that it was the perfect role for Jim Carrey. I really always laugh when people say, "Oh, he's just being the Joker." Completely disagree, man. Like I said, watch the Frank Gorshin Riddler. You will never say that. Like, to me, I think what a lot of people compared it to was the Riddler of the Batman the Animated Series, of course, from 1992. They compared it to that Riddler, or what Robin Williams' Riddler would have been had they gone with the, darker Tim Burton take. I never know. We never know what that movie would have turned out like. But I got to say, I liked making it more kid-friendly, and I liked the whole presentation of Batman Forever. But I'm definitely alone in that. People do not agree. They hate this movie. It's definitely, I guess, a biased pick. Mark's in the house. Mark, what's up, buddy? It isn't his worst performance, but it is his most Jim Carrey performance. I love that. I may steal that. I love it. I think that's a fantastic way of putting it. That dyed red hair fucking legend. And then at some points in the film when he's like a pedestrian, it's gone. The hair's gone. Like, it's just normal Jim Carrey, which I always thought was funny. If you ever watched the 1992 Batman animated series, the Riddler first begins as a computer game designer who gets fired and becomes the villain. Yes, and that I like that take as well. I do have fun with Batman Forever, and even Batman and Robin I can have a little fun with. Yeah, it's not boring. Neither one of those films are boring. They wouldn't get 3 minutes through a commentary without getting into a fallout brawl. Well, I don't know. I can dream, right? That's my dream commentary for sure. But that is Batman Forever. Coming up next, though, is a lot of people would probably say this belongs to the number 1 slot, but it falls here, I believe. Is it number 6 or number 5? We did Bruce Almighty, Liar Liar, Man on the Moon, Batman Forever. This is number 6, I believe. This is from the year 1994. This is Ace Ventura Pet Detective. Yes, Ace Ventura Pet Detective, the movie that really made him a star, the movie that really made his career, the movie that got him noticed all around the world was this movie right here, in my opinion. And of course, I give a brief plot synopsis. A goofy detective specializing in animals goes in search of the missing mascot of the Miami Dolphins. Yes, Ace Ventura Pet Detective. To me, and I like what Mark just said, it wasn't his worst performance, but it was his most Jim Carrey performance. I don't think there's any movie on this list, and that's why I think it can be argued that it is number 1. There's no movie on this list that benefits more from having Jim Carrey in it than this one. This is the movie that Jim Carrey, in my opinion, carries the most, is Ace Ventura Pet Detective, because I always say this too. The plot of this movie is quite dumb. And not even dumb in like, it's funny. It's a bad plot, in my opinion. Like, if I'm a fucking producer, if I'm a fucking New Line Cinema, if I'm sitting down and scripts are being passed around my way, and someone says, "Oh, hey, okay, we got this idea. We're gonna have a pet detective that dresses like, has his hair like, and walks like a bird." Like, again, the physical comedy that Jim Carrey brings to this. Only Jim Carrey could have done that. He's investigating a Miami dolphin being stolen. And it may have been stolen by a disgruntled transvestite field goal kicker. And Dan Marino is involved, and Courtney Cox is involved, and Udo Kier is involved, and Sean Young may just be the it's just a mess on paper, really is. but Jim Carrey makes it work. It's the movie that Jim Carrey makes the most. And for all of the humor Jim Carrey delivers in this film. Like I said, anything down from just the walk, the way he walks like a bird, like this, and the hairdo and the colorful jacket. He really wanted to kind of resemble a peacock or a bird. And that's why he walks and does the thing. And even them down to when he's talking with his asshole to the one guy. Hey, buddy, and of course, when he's investigating the crime scene, and you said that you heard a yell, and you said that you had opened the door, right? Huh, let's see. And he's opening and closing the door and screaming, "Ah! Ah!" Opening and closing the door and screaming. And I have exorcised the demons in this room. I mean, he is fucking incredible in this movie. And I know a lot of people probably say that aren't Jim Carrey fans that he's quite annoying in this role. But like I said, there is not another human being on God's green earth that could give the performance Jim Carrey did in this movie and make this work. It is a poor plot. It really is. I mean, that is a messy ass plot. I'm telling you, if I was 1994, I'm sitting there and they give me this script, I'll be like, geez, this is bad. I don't think I would do this. But he makes it. It's truly the number one movie on the list if you were looking for movies that Jim Carrey made himself. And do not go in there. Woo! And just incredible. Jim Carrey is absolutely a riot in this film. And I think, there's no better casting choice. And I really think there was no better leading man film debut for him than this movie right here, because it was a spotlight really for him to shine and show what he could do from the comedic standpoint. Because while I think The Mask, to me, it's a great plot, great story, great performance, all around great movie. Like, I like The Mask from top to bottom. I think the music, the director, the idea, it's great. If I'm the guy in the world, I'm The Mask. Give it to him, Same with Dumb and Dumber. This movie on paper, I don't think looks that good until you insert Jim Carrey. Then it becomes a fucking classic. Then it becomes this wonderful film that everybody kind of remembers and looks fondly upon. All righty then. And even down to the point when he's in the, asylum wearing the tutu. And let me do that in slow motion for you. Oh, you didn't catch that? Let me do it in reverse. Like only he could sell that humor. And he just does a wonderful job in this, man. I really love Jim Carrey, even down to the wacky finale with, the wacky finale with Sean Young and he got in trouble because he saw her Winky, and she discovered Mr. Winky and ripping off, if she was a woman, she wouldn't have this hair and can't pull it off. And he keeps stripping her down and all of these things. It's just a lot of fun. Having Dan Marino there, just wild. I don't know. I always loved this movie. I thought this movie was kind of fun. And, of the wonderful year of 1994 where he did 3 classics, this was always one that stood out brightly. And I had to put this on the list. Probably a lot of people say I'd have this a little too low. And maybe so. I would be honest, if I was doing movies, I like Ace Ventura 2 better. I like Ace Ventura 2 better because, again, you get the same performance, right? But you also, I think, get a much better story, plot, and all that stuff in Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. I always like the second one better. But I think this movie is definitely Jim Carrey's one of his brightest performances. I love Ace Ventura. So one I definitely wanted to, put on the list here. Do not go there. Do not go in there. Woo! I love that. It's just hysterical. The Pet Detective movies are dope. I prefer the second one. I agree. I prefer the second one too. As a matter of fact, I have the second one. I don't own a physical copy of the first one, funny enough. Laces out, Grande. Laces out. Of course, Mateo. I think what makes Ace Ventura is that you think he's not taking the case seriously, but it's basically his way of doing things. Yes, and I would say this is one of the number one roles where Jim Carrey really committed to it. Like, you really, this is one of the few roles I don't see Jim Carrey. He's Ace Ventura Pet Detective. He committed to this role in a way that no other human being could have. I've heard people argue, and I actually remember having the argument about a year ago. I forget who with. But somebody said, you don't think Eddie Murphy could have pulled that off? And I love Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy, to me, a top 5 comedic talent of all time. I love him. But no, I don't think anyone other than Jim Carrey could have pulled this off. I think Eddie Murphy might have hit a double. Eddie Murphy might have hit a triple. Jim Carrey hit a home run with Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. And I think it's really a fucking great performance. Haven't seen it in a while, and if I remember the end twist, don't think it would have ever. Yeah, this is a movie that could easily be erased now for the ending. And I know in the politically correct world we live in, that's definitely a possibility. I think it's all in good fun, but again, I'm also, people call me naive and a bunch of things. So I don't know. I think it's fine. I don't think it's in bad taste personally. I think this movie is, if anything, it's just a goofy, fun movie. And I just love all of his interactions with the people and the fake laugh, just the way he's making fun of them, taunting him. And I think he's great. Jim Carrey was almost born to play this. Very, very young, beautiful Courtney Cox in this film. She looks fantastic. Absolutely love Courtney Cox in this. I don't find him annoying in this film at all, as extremely fun. I would agree. He's extremely fun in this for sure. In the movie, after Ace finds out that Einhorn is really Ray Finkel, it plays the theme to underrated film The Crying Game. Yes, and that's it. Sean Young is fun, so fun in this too. I miss Sean Young. I always loved her in Stripes, and I think Sean Young was great, man. She's just great. Although I've heard she's nutty too. I've heard she's kind of nuts. Also, this film is one of the best sequels of all time. Ace Ventura Jr., Pet Detective, 2 out of 10 IMDb. Oh my God. It's funny that Ace Ventura and The Mask both spawned. It's funny, all three of the movies from 94 he did all spawned bad sequels. Like this one, Ace Ventura When Nature Calls, I love. But Son of Ace Ventura, horrible. Dumb and Dumber 2, horrible. And Son of the Mask, horrible. It's weird because they tried all three of them. It was like, let's do it again. They even did a prequel to Dumb and Dumber, which of those three movies I just mentioned, it's better than all three of those movies. Dumb and Dumberer, I will watch that over Son of the Mask any fucking day. I will watch it over Son of Ace Ventura any day. It's a shame that, all three movies, they weren't just left alone. All three of them got bad sequels. I read that the movie was made as a 90s version of the classic comedy Fetch. No, definitely. I could see that. The scene where he comes out of the rhino's ass. Oh, and the second one, that is like, I'll never forget when I first saw that. I mean, you're talking young. I mean, I must have been maybe 5, 6 years old. Fell on the floor laughing. Just hysterical. Absolutely hysterical. What films did I miss, Grande? The Monkey's in the House. You missed. Okay, so at number 10, it was Bruce Almighty. Number 9 was Liar Liar. Number 8, Man on the Moon. Number 7 was Batman Forever. And now we are on to number 6, Ace Ventura. And then we are going to count down the top 5. Don't remember the ending. How did it end? Oh, well, okay, spoiler alert for those who have not seen Ace Ventura. So the disgruntled field goal kicker is the one that was behind the kidnapping, and the disgruntled field goal kicker has now changed their sex from being Ray Finkel. They are now Einhorn, played by Sean Young, and she has her penis taped in between her legs and to her ass. And, like I said, in today's culture, it could be considered, or deemed offensive in politically correct society. Maybe it is. I don't know. I thought it was funny. I thought it was in good taste, but I know people that out there that could be offended. So that's what people are saying about the controversial ending, if you will. But like I said, I thought this was a fun, dumb movie. So I don't know. I didn't take it seriously. Eddie Murphy also hit Pluto Nash. I don't think Jim ever touched that low. You know what's funny? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was Pluto Nash also directed by Shadyac? Can someone check me on that? It's crazy. He did Ace Ventura. He did Liar Liar. Then he did the $100 million plus bomb known as Pluto Nash, and then bounced back with Bruce Almighty, which is crazy because all three of those films made the list. And then you have Pluto Nash working with Eddie Murphy, and the movie had a budget of $100 million and made back $5. So it's incredible how low that was. I believe it was Tom Shadyac that directed. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know. But it definitely has that kind of feel to a Tom Shadyac film. But I do want to see a cartoon R-rated movie of the superpowered dog and baby trying to kill each other in bloody Looney Tunes-like ways. Yeah, no, definitely. And don't forget the psychological break he is suffering during that scene, Grande. Yeah, exactly. It's definitely something that people could be like, oh, it's offensive and whatever. Definitely, somebody was saying before it could maybe have not flied today. But it is what it is. Ryan Underwood directed. Okay, I was wrong about that. Okay, I apologize. But I don't know. It does kind of feel like a Tom Shadyac film in some ways. So let's move on here. Let's share the screen to our next film of the evening. Let me just click here. That was number 6, Ace Ventura. Absolutely love that movie. One of my all-time faves, especially from Jim Carrey Performances. It's got to be up there. But coming up next, it is also from the year 1994. This is just an all-time great movie, and is none other than Dumb and Dumber. Yes, Dumb and Dumber from the year 1994. Of course, Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels starring let me give this full screen here, and I'll do a brief plot synopsis once I get this up. After a woman leaves a briefcase at the airport terminal, a dumb limo driver and his dumber friend set out on a hilarious cross country road trip to Aspen to return it. Yes, Dumb and Dumber. Now, Dumb and Dumber is considered by many to be one of the top greatest comedies of all time, and it's fantastic. The Farrelly brothers did a wonderful job, and they made so many great movies, whether it be this, whether it be movies like Kingpin, whether just so many great movies over the years that the Farrelly brothers did. But this is always the one that kind of stood out the most. And I really would say this one, as great as Jim Carrey is, I definitely think it's mostly about the chemistry between these lead two actors. So I don't want to leave Jeff Daniels out here because I think Jeff Daniels is actually arguably the most important part of this film. It's their chemistry together. And a lot of people kind of argue over the years, was Jim Carrey right or wrong here? Because Jim Carrey did fight for Jeff Daniels to get this role. However, Jim Carrey made $7 million on this movie, whereas Jeff Daniels made $50,000 on this movie. So Jim Carrey made quite a significant more amount of money on this film as opposed to a Jeff Daniels. But I think what Jeff Daniels did so smart here was he knew he was never going to outdo Jim Carrey. You're never going to out Jim Carrey. And he said that a lot of the other people he read with were trying to outdo him or go over the top or go to reach that level of Jim Carrey. Whereas Jeff Daniels lets Jim Carrey go there and kind of meets him in the middle down here, whereas their organic chemistry can kind of flow together. And this movie can truly work as not just a slapstick comedy, but as a fun road buddy comedy, and I think the two of them do just a great job together. Of course, I always love the opening scene, one of the opening scenes where they're in the apartment, talking about their lives, right? And Lloyd, we had a pretty bad day today. My parrot Pete, he died. His head fell off. He was pretty old. It's just funny shit like that. And Jim Carrey goes on the whole rant, and I'm sick and tired of this. I'm sick and tired of that. And our pets' heads are falling off. And he's just going on. I want to go somewhere where it's warm, where the beer flows like wine. And I'm talking about Aspen and fuck the French, Lloyd. They're not trustworthy people and all this stuff. And wait a minute, you just want to go chasing a girl around, and the two of them just innocently playing these roles as dumb and naive as they possibly can really sells the humor for me. That's what really sells this humor. It's very, for Dumb and Dumber, it's very smart humor in my opinion, because it's not mean-spirited being dumb and dumb like that sequel. I never liked Dumb and Dumber 2. I felt that they were very unlike how they were here, where it was very innocent, naive, and life was theirs, happy-go-lucky. That sequel, they kind of turn everything on its head, and it's kind of a little bit mean-spirited, where Harry and Lloyd were like, hotboxing people with their fucking farts. I just thought that was odd. I really liked the sequel of this Dumb and Dumber 2. Never cared for it. I just felt it was off. It's a movie that's just a little bit off. But this movie here, I mean, there's just 100 amazing comedic scenes. Of course, the doggy car and the, keep passing me the beer bottles, Harry. And he's peeing in all the beer bottles. They get pulled over by a cop. And you've been drinking, buddy? No, you don't want to drink that. Yeah. Why don't you shut up, you pumpkin pie haircutted freak, and drinks it. And get the hell out of here, you two. They drive away, and they kill the guy with the ulcers. Hey, you want to hear the most annoying sound in the world? Just making that noise. And guys, stop. And the two of them, Bert, yeah. I mean, the two of them just being as annoying as they can to irritate this guy. Hysterical. And they don't even know that they're irritating him. That's how innocent they all are. I love it. It's absolutely fantastic, the two of them, and how they play off each other here. And of course, who could forget the scene where they get all dolled up and, they're doing the nail polish, and, they have the machine because their nails are so long, and they walk up in the orange and blue cream tuxedos. And I'd like to eat her liver with some farver beans. And they do the Hannibal Lecter noise. Just hysterical. This is a really, really funny movie, and a movie that really, like, over the years, I know my good friend Brandon, it's his favorite comedy of all time. And it's funny in that vein too. He always tells me my favorite comedy of all time is Dumb and Dumber. My least favorite comedy of all time is Dumb and Dumber 2. That goes to show you, someone who loves this film as much as Brandon even felt that the sequel was just completely unnecessary and poor. I love this. I think this is just a funny, good comedy. I really, there's one of those, I don't really know what to say as much as I do some of these other ones. I just think Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels, their chemistry with one another was just absolutely fantastic. I think, these two guys at this time, it's interesting that they didn't try to stick somebody bigger than a Jeff Daniels in here, but I like it because I think Jeff Daniels really makes the film work. I love Dumb and Dumber. I think it's a great movie. So let's get back into comments, though. Let's go here. I believe we were here. There was once Ace Ventura cartoon series as well as the Mask cartoon series. The Mask cartoon series I'd like to check out. I wonder if anyone ever tried designing their van like that. I mean, maybe, who knows? You see a movie sometimes, it happens. Thought for sure Dumb and Dumber would have been your number one, my favorite Carrey comedy. Oh, it's great. Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's right here. I mean, that's how many good movies Jim Carrey did, but it's fantastic. I don't think there's any issue with it being number one. It could easily be number one. It's definitely arguably his most funny film. Like it's has the most laughs. I would say that. I actually would definitely say that. It is maybe the funniest of Jim Carrey's movies for sure. I'm not a big Dumb and Dumber fan. It's fun, but sometimes I find the characters annoying me just as much as the other characters in the movie, but I still enjoy it. Okay, it's fair criticism. Do you want to hear the most annoying sound in the world? I love the scene in the hotel with him and Jim. And that woman really shows Jim dramatic chops that early on in his career. I think he has some really good dramatic chops when he's telling him, I'm sick and tired of being alone. I'm sick and tired of this, sick and tired of that. And he has tears in his eyes. And Harry's like, all right, bring it in. We're going to go on the road trip. Really, I thought the two of them were good. Like when they had to be serious with each other, they were good and serious with each other, and then when they had to be Dumb and Dumber, they were Dumb and Dumber. I mean, it's a really nice dynamic those two had. It was golden chemistry, in my opinion. Dumb and Dumber is iconic. I watched in the theater when I was 11. The scene of peeing on the mop cracks me up. Oh, of course. Oh, the moped. Sorry, the moped. Yeah, of course. And I just go, oh man, and butt warmers, just hysterical. And Samsonite, I was close, and all the stuff thinking of her name and stuff like that. And I don't know. I think Dumb and Dumber is just one of those beautiful movies where it just has a nice innocence to it. There was also the prequel, When Harry Met Lloyd. I never hated the prequel. I always thought that they were more like Harry and Lloyd than Harry and Lloyd were like in the sequel. I just never cared for that sequel. I thought that was just an unnecessary bad film, Dumb and Dumber 2. Whereas Dumb and Dumber, I thought the guy playing Jim Carrey was better than Jim Carrey in the sequel, which is crazy. It really is. But I love Lloyd Christmas. And I don't know. I think that Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey were just money together in this film. One of my all-time favorites, and Dumb and Dumber comes in here on the top 10 list. I believe it was number 5. I keep losing where I am tonight. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. This is number 5. So we are officially in the top 5. We landed on the moon. That's right. Hell yeah, we landed on the moon. Want to know my number one favorite of Jim's? Of course, yeah, share it. Dumb and Dumber is all-time classic. I absolutely love it. I mean, few movies is as funny or as memorable as Dumb and Dumber. So absolutely love Dumb and Dumber. But moving on into the number 4 pick, this is the last movie, I promise, from the year 1994 that will make the list. This is The Mask. Yes, The Mask from, of course, 1994. I want to get up oh no, the Wi-Fi just crashed. That's not good. Okay, well, I was going to bring that up, but I think the Wi-Fi crashed. Can we still hear me? Oh no, that is bad. That's the first time it's ever happened. Okay, let's kill the screen share. I don't know. I guess we're not meant to see that. We are not meant to see that. It's funny you mentioned that, the monkey. I mentioned the Majestic. It did not make the top 10 list. Funny enough, Jim Carrey said that was like his least favorite role ever. I like the movie, but I don't know. Like, I definitely think his performance is fine too. I don't know. It's just one of those, I'm surprised he doesn't like it. Number 1 is number 23. It is not, I promise you. Smoking. Yes, of course, The Mask. I had the plot synopsis up here, but yeah, the Wi-Fi crashed here, so I don't know. Still see and hear you. Okay, good. Don't care for The Mask. Sorry. Really? Wow. Not a fan of The Mask? I'm surprised, man. The Mask, just one of probably my favorite of the 3 classics of 94 from Jim Carrey. It's funny that they ended up all right in a row. And it's fun. I think they came out Ace Ventura, then The Mask, then Dumb and Dumber. I think Ace Ventura was February of 94. The Mask was July of 94. And then Dumb and Dumber was December of 94. So it was all, spaced out pretty decently. But The Mask is absolutely my favorite of those 3. And it's the one I grew up with the most. So maybe that's why. Of course, you have Jim Carrey playing Stanley Ipkiss, the nice guy who works in this bank. And then, of course, he has this terrible night where he's supposed to get in the nightclub and he doesn't. He gets thrown in the gutter. He's this awful loner car. He's just this down on his luck guy who goes to try to save someone from drowning. He doesn't realize that it's not someone that's drowning. It is just this, pile of rubble, and he pulls out this mask that when he puts it on, he becomes this crazy larger than life character, this over the top character who has all these fun one liners, party, because I gotta, and I mean, just a fun cartoon come to life character that Jim Carrey plays here. And of course, The Mask was based on a comic. It was directed by Chuck Russell, who of course had made The Blob and A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, which I'm actually rocking on the show tonight. Chuck Russell does a great job, in my opinion, directing this movie. And I think that Jim Carrey really shines in this role. I really like him playing the kind of down on his luck loser by day, but by night he becomes this larger than life entity known as the Mask. And the whole idea in the scene of dancing in the club with Cameron Diaz, hey, we're dancing, hey, we're dancing tonight. I mean, just a fun scene with he and Cameron Diaz as he spins her around so fast, her shoes start to smoke, and that is one spicy meatball. He's just great in this. This is another movie where I think without Jim Carrey, I mean, if anybody else had tried to play this, it would never have worked. He really brings this movie to life. There's, of course, this whole investigation going on, and there's these fun kind of, cops and Ipkiss, I know it's you and you in pajamas and all this stuff. I think that guy does a good job. I think The Mask is a great one. I really always loved The Mask growing up. I thought it was just a really interesting take for Jim Carrey's career at this time, because what a rebound from Ace Ventura. As great as Ace Ventura is, The Mask, in my opinion, is even better. From top to bottom, I think it's just a great story, great idea. And I like that it plays out in kind of different ways, right? Like, he at first meets Cameron Diaz, who seems like she's up to no good. And then he meets this like innocent as she seems kind of reporter, and you think, oh, I know how this is going to go. Cameron Diaz is bad. This one's good. He's going to end up with the goody two shoes, not Cameron Diaz, who he's gaga for. And it switches around. Cameron Diaz actually has a heart of gold, and this other one, this reporter lady, is really evil. I liked how they play with those dynamics. They kind of did the old switcheroo there. I thought that was kind of smart, something that was not predictable, dare I say. And just some of the craziness that goes on where he's dancing with the cops, and he's from Savannah, Havana, chick, chicky boom, chick, chicky boom, chick, chicky boom, and the maracas. And just, this is one of those just great feel-good movies for me. And I know a lot of people that like the comic, they wish that this was a more violent film. I think the violence gets there. I mean, you get people getting shot and killed in this movie. You have people getting, I guess mufflers shoved up their asses. You get, the eye pop outs, and Jim Carrey jumps out of the window and splats down to the ground. Hey, Ma, look, I'm roadkill. Ha ha ha. And the balloon animals. And I thought it was violent enough. I don't know. The whole finale where, they're drawing the thing and the sticks of dynamite, and I thought the CGI even held up pretty good from this movie, considering it's 1994, where the CGI in the 1990s, I mean 1995 especially, was atrocious. I thought the CGI worked here for this particular movie. I thought it worked fine. And of course, there's a scene where Jim Carrey, he kind of loves this cartoon where it's this wolf. And does anyone know the name of the cartoon? I'd actually would like to know that. Slasher Fred seems to be my my fact checker here. Slasher Fred, do you know what cartoon that is? I'm curious. Of course, there's this wolf that goes to this nightclub and whistles for this woman. And of course, that's what happens to Jim Carrey when he goes to see Cameron Diaz. His jaw drops and he's whistling for this woman like the cartoon. I don't know. This is really a fun comic book movie for me. And I don't know. I never really got the people that say, oh, it should be more violent. I think it's violent enough. I don't know. And I think it was nice to see Jim Carrey play the everyday regular guy, and then by night he's able to dial it up. This is an interesting Jim Carrey performance because he's dialed down to 5 during the day, and then when he's the Mask, he dials it up past 11. And he really is able to give his Jim Carrey performance to it. It's almost like a dual role for him. And that's really a big reason why The Mask is higher than, all the movies that have come before to this point. I think it's a really, really important role in his career. And my favorite of the year 1994, the movies that he was in. So I really love The Mask. Let's get to comments. Seems like we got a ton of them. Like you said, don't care for The Mask. Sorry, no worries. Once Bitten was before all you mentioned. Yes, Once Bitten was there. That's true. I'm with Mateo. I find The Mask annoying. Wow, two people that don't like The Mask. Okay, so I'm definitely in the minority here. The Mask is lots of fun. I would like to see a version more closer to the original comics. Yes, there's always somebody says that. So I haven't read the comics, so I really can't be ignorant here. I don't know. I don't think the movie though lacks violence, I guess is what I'm saying. We all wear masks, and he's imitating that one guy. And all right, when I put it on, I'm going to go crazy. I hope you know. Maybe it only works at night. He was the night god. I have a video somewhere on my phone of a cosplayer doing it was the one-armed man scene with me. Oh, of course. I mean, that's classic. I like the scene where he's pretending that to win the Oscar, you love me, you really love me. I mean, just great. You got me, partner. I think that's just fantastic. This movie has a reference to Animal House in the scene where the cops are frisking the mask. They find a photo of the actress who played Wormer's wife. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. And I think it's funny the scene where he's making the balloon animals, as Trenchy mentions. There's one point where he pulls out a condom and he's like, oh, wrong pocket. That's a scene that went over my head as a kid. I never noticed it. And when you rewatch it as an adult, oh my God, he fucking used condom. That's hysterical. Like, I don't know. I think this is one of those movies that, again, Jim Carrey brought so much to it. Whereas I do think, in an alternate world, I do think there are other actors that maybe could have been considered. Maybe not at the time because he wasn't really known yet, like an Adam Sandler. I could see the Adam Sandler playing the Stanley Ipkiss part where he's down in his luck, nice guys finish last. Adam Sandler plays that role a lot. Like the grown-up adults that he's cool, but no woman wants to be with him. I get that. I think Adam Sandler could have done a good job, but I don't think Adam Sandler could have dialed up the mask part like Jim Carrey did. I mean, he really made it his own, and the musical numbers and just the crazy facial expressions, and that's just one of spicy meatball. I mean, he just did a great job. Interesting story. I saw this film when it first came out. Decades later, they released another cut showing that one who betrays him died when, for decades, I thought she survived. Which you're talking about The Mask? I'm not sure. The thing is, The Mask comic and movie both work, but in different ways. I wouldn't want B for Butte remake, especially because Stanley axes it early in that. Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. There was a deleted scene which reveals the fate of Double Crossing Reporter. Oh, was there? I didn't know what happened to the Double Crossing Reporter. I think that's just a rando Merry Melodies thing. Okay. I think the wolf is a Tex Avery cartoon. Okay. Tex Avery seeing Shift Cinderella. Okay. King Corey's in the house. Yeah, to see my Wi-Fi is weird. I can't see his pro pic right now. I don't know. Yo, on my way to work now. Dude, thank you so much for checking in. No worries. Typo. Ace Ventura 2 Rhino Bird scene still cracks me up. Oh, I mentioned that. I love it. That's one of my favorite scenes in all of Jim Carrey's cinema. But welcome, Corey. I hope all is well. But yeah, that is The Mask. Surprised. I seem to get a lot of people that do not like The Mask. So that's definitely surprising. I don't think it's going to let me click on any of these other ones here. I was planning on doing screen sharing for the rest of them. I guess we could try it. We'll try one more time to do the screen share for these. But I think my Wi-Fi just had some sort of a hiccup as we move on to the number 3 pick here. This is from the year 1996. The year I was born, funny enough. This is The Cable Guy. Yes, The Cable Guy. Probably the one that people will be pissed is this high on the list. But I would have to say, if there was the Jim Carrey film I grew up with the most, this would be the one. I watched this to death as a kid, and it's one of those movies that was very misunderstood when it came out, and it's garnered a cult following over the years. Of course, directed by Ben Stiller. When it came out, it was considered a huge flop, a huge bomb. And like I was saying at the outro, or the intro, I should say, Jim Carrey was paid $20 million to play a cable guy with a lisp, and the movie only grossed about $60 million, and people considered it to be the first big bomb of his career. And will he rebound? Of course he did, with movies like Simon Birch, movies like Liar Liar. I loved Jim Carrey in this movie, though. And I always thought this was a great movie. Even from the first time I saw it, I have the VHS tape to this day. I didn't get any of my physical media for Jim Carrey. I guess I just kind of put this together at the last minute for the prop showing wise. But I thought that, this movie, even from the first time I saw it, it's a different kind of comedy. It really is a different kind of, it's a dark comedy. It's really a character study of someone who struggles with loneliness. And that's really Jim Carrey's character in this, and someone who did not grow up with brothers and sisters. His father was not around, so he grew up and it was pretty much raised by the old television. Of course, Matthew Broderick plays this guy who He's getting his cable installed at the beginning. Jim Carrey comes and he's just this crazy, large in life character who has no friends and he wants to be Matthew Broderick's best friend. So they take a ride on the information superhighway and they take the ride and they're lying in the satellite. And, you could be here one minute and then playing Mortal Kombat with a friend in Korea at the next. It's just this whole spiel that Jim Carrey goes on about the beauties of cable and the beauties of satellites and all of these things. I would say this has got to be a top 3 Jim Carrey performance for me because it's really was misunderstood at the time because it wasn't laugh out loud funny, slapstick humor like a Liar Liar, like an Ace Ventura. It was very much more had that dark element to it that I think a lot of people were like, oh my God, I'm not ready for that. But to say that this movie isn't funny either, I think this is hysterical, this fucking movie. Like the scene where they're in medieval times and Jim Carrey, we must battle to the death or they will kill us both. And he's literally singing the Star Trek music as they're fighting. Fighting Matthew. Matthew Brown's like, stop it, you crazy bastard. And I don't think he's kidding, buddy. And I just love that scene in the medieval times. And he's talking to, hey, how is thou, fair wench? And hey, you didn't have the utensils in medieval time, but you had Pepsi. And dude, I got a lot of tables. Janine Garofalo, fun role for her, kind of fun, small role for her. And honestly, down. Red Knight's going down. Down. The Red Knight's going down. The Red Knight sucks the big one. Just funny as hell. And even in the following scene where they get home, this is the dark humor that can go over people's heads. Matthew Broderick's cracking Jim Carrey's back. And Jim Carrey's going, oh, yeah. And it almost sounds like a minute like they're fucking. And for Jim Carrey's character, that is as close as he's ever going to get to fucking. So it's, again, dark humor that a lot of people, it's going to go over their heads and they're not going to find funny. But I think Ben Stiller, it's so interesting that he directed this movie here. And it was written by Judd Apatow before Judd Apatow exploded with movies like The 40-Year-Old Virgin and Knocked Up and movies like that. It's crazy. You had Jim Carrey, probably the hottest comedic actor at that time. Ben Stiller, an all-time great comedic talent, directing the film and cameoing in the film as the Sam Sweden twins. And then you have it written by Judd Apatow, who went on to be just this big comedic writer for years to come. The three of them come together and to me make this all-time cult comedic classic. I love The Cable Guy. Cable Guy is just one of my all-time favorite Jim Carrey movies and one that had to be in the top 3. It really, from a non-serious standpoint, it probably is my favorite. I love the scene where they have the karaoke night and he sings, Somebody to Love by Jefferson. That night, the Hell Angels had their way. Tonight, it's my turn. 1, 2, 3, when the truth is found. He's doing this with the singing and all the joy within you died. Don't you want somebody to love? Just hysterical as all these weird people in this fucking apartment, this weird old man, and he has the prostitute to fuck Matthew Broderick. I mean, just really fun. I love him in this movie, but I think there's also parts where he is dark and he's sort of dark in a scary way. I could be your best friend or your worst enemy, Steven, and he's trying to convince him of that. And, you just got to be my friend and just messing with you. Just hysterical, man. Jim Carrey in this is absolute money. The scene where they're playing basketball. Oh, we're playing prison rules, huh? And he runs on Jack Black's back and slam dunks, destroys the whole game. And he's just like, hey, thanks, man. Thanks for the boost. I never had a slam dunk before. And Jack Black saying to him at one point, hey, I don't know what your deal is, Chip Douglas, but I'm going to find out. And Jim Carrey, without missing a beat, don't dig too deep or you might get burned by the molten lava. I just like hysterical. Like only he could make this movie work. And of course, the scene where Matthew Broderick tries to do the nice thing and be his friend. And here, it's my uncle or my cousin or my friend or somebody is a speech pathologist. And Jim Carrey starts crying. He says, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And he goes, yes, it is. It is to me, and thank you, Steven. And I love the two of them in this. I think they do a great job. And of course, I see Patrick's in the house. Have Cheetah will view. Welcome, buddy. Welcome, man. I saw you were interviewing before. I threw you a like, man. Welcome, Patrick. Hope all is well with you, man. Chip Douglas. Then he says he's Larry Tate. Then he's Ricky Ricardo. He's every character he is from a TV series. And I think possibly the best Jim Carrey scene in this whole movie is when at the end where it sort of gets serious and he's on the the tower with Leslie Mann, who I believe went on to marry Judd Apatow. Funny enough, I wonder if they probably met on the set of this film. He's telling them about how lonely he gets. And he goes, hey, everybody gets lonely. Don't worry about it. And he says, yeah, but I get really lonely. And, I learned the facts of life by watching the facts of life. You expected Carol Brady to raise me. And I know people can laugh at that, but I'll say, even as a kid, I thought it was a quite heart-wrenching scene where he's going on and on about how shitty his life was, and how all of these movies and television shows and characters that we all grew up with our families watching, he grew up watching them alone. And it's quite an emotional scene for me. I definitely, I don't know, I definitely think that Jim Carrey hit a good mark there. And, somebody's got to kill the babysitter, and then he just kind of lets himself go. I think this is a great performance. It's arguably his best. To me, this is the one that could be argued for number one. I think it's such an amazing performance because it's so many different layers to it. It's not just slapstick funny, but it has those elements. It's not just dark, but it has those elements. It's really one of the more well-rounded Jim Carrey performances out there. There's just a lot of great stuff in this. Of course, the scene where he beats up Owen Wilson, which I wish would happen to Owen Wilson in real life. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I love when he beats the shit out of Owen Wilson and kiss him, man. It's just hysterical. And when they're playing, Password with Matthew Broderick's mom, the word is nipple. He's like, I'm not saying that to my mom. He's like, okay, the word is clitoris. I will not play this game anymore. And I love Matthew Broderick does a good job as the straight man, but Jim Carrey really, I think, hit a home run as the cable guy. Always loved Jim Carrey as the cable guy. I think it's one of his most, I would say it's the most underrated Jim Carrey performance, and one that I really wanted to make sure was on here. So let's go back to comments. I think we were here. It would have been interesting if Adam Sandler played Stanley and Carrey played the Mask, like they were really two different people. That would have been interesting. Hey, man, who knows? That might have. Like I say, I think Adam Sandler could have pulled off the Stanley Ipkiss. I think there are a lot of actors that could have pulled off Stanley Ipkiss. I think there's only one actor that could have pulled off the Mask, and that's Jim Carrey. No offense to Jamie Kennedy. I like Jamie Kennedy, but just it didn't make any sense in Son of the Mask. It's just leave it alone. Like, nobody can play that character except Jim Carrey. And the same thing with Ace Ventura. Not your son. That's Jim Carrey's role. It really is. You start dancing, I will blow your brains out. Yeah, you start dancing, Doyle. Matthew Broderick, classic. Totally agree, Ben. John, what about Grinch Who Stole Christmas? Grinch Who Stole Christmas did not make the list. Little spoiler, it is not number 2. It is not number 1. The performance has an argument. Like, it definitely has an argument, because for him to act through all that makeup and just the lines in that too, and, self-loathing and pity itself, and, total world hate and all these things, and even the song Seasick Crocodile, he's great in The Grinch. But again, that's another one of the movie I don't like that much. I think it's fucking way too long to make a 22-minute cartoon and a short Dr. Seuss story into a fucking 2-hour movie and throw the whole, people that decorate their house, consumerism, like fucking, I don't know. I like Ron Howard, but I don't know if Ron Howard was right for that. There's instances of that movie I like, but it doesn't make the list. I like the performance, and it does have an argument to be on here, but I don't know. For me, The Grinch Stole Christmas, it doesn't quite make the top 10 for me. Ben Stiller is kind of one of my favorite directors. He's done some great stuff. Great performance. Totally agree, Mateo. Cable Guy is fantastic. He gets a plus for torturing Matthew Broderick. I love it. I love it. The reporter's death is what I was talking about. They didn't show. Oh, she died. Wow. Okay. I didn't know that. I completely didn't know that. I still have the old school pink DVD of The Mask. That's one I've never upgraded. Oh my God. Yeah, me too. I remember, fun Grande anecdote. I went on a school trip, and we went to medieval times, and I was telling people, I was like, this is just like Cable Guy. Like, holy shit. People are like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, Jim Carrey? Oh, I love Jim Carrey. Cable Guy? Oh, what's that? Cable Guy was one that nobody talked about, and it's just a movie that I kind of, just because I had the VHS, I watched it to death over the years. I loved it. Remake of this, but instead of TV, is just an insane person that just grew up with TV shows, just watched too much Smosh. Oh my God, you could do it. You could easily make this into a horror film. You could totally do it. And it, like I said, it has those dark elements, but I think what really sets it apart is Jim Carrey kind of playing with all those levels, right? The comedy levels, dark levels. He does a really good job. Down, down, down. The red light's going down. The Red Knight sucks, the big one. Smoking. Of course. We had The Mask. That was number 4. Welcome, Patrick. Like I said, Cable Guy's underrated. I think people misunderstood it. I do too. And I think more people get it now. It's one of those movies that now it seems to have a cult following. And like I said, it's the only movie, to my knowledge, he's ever done a commentary for. I believe it was part of the paycheck. He had to do the commentary. He does not like to talk about his films. This was one of the only films, to my knowledge, he did a commentary for with Ben Stiller and Judd Apatow. It's an insane listen with those 3 guys being in the room. Hey, Cheetah. Hey, Trenchy. Chip Douglas. Yes, and Larry Tate. The karaoke scene I mentioned, of course, Someone to Love. Cable Guy was dark on many levels in a good way. He can do dramatic roles, and that's going to be our last 2 here. Speaking of the Grinch, who also played Scrooge, Jim Carrey. Yes, that's true. That the kind of 3D animation Scrooge, which I actually quite like that as well. See, it's a lot that you could argue. Me, Myself, and Irene is one that I know people will argue, and I love that movie. The movie, like I said, better than Man on the Moon, but I put a Man on the Moon over it. So that is the Cable Guy coming in at number 3. And now we will move on into our top 2, ladies and gents. And I'm sure that, people probably have guesses as to what the top 2 are going to be. But first, it is from the year 2004. This is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Yes, let me get you a full screen here of the poster, and I can do plot synopsises because now my laptop decided to start cooperating again. When their relationship turns sour, a couple undergoes a medical procedure to have each other erased from their memories forever. Yes, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Now, this is a movie that I will not lie. People probably make fun of me in the comments, and it's okay if you do. I don't blame you. I started to rewatch this, and I had to turn it off about an hour in. I fucking started crying. I can't get through this movie. I don't know if it's just where I'm at right now or the subject matter. I really fucking started crying watching this, and I had to turn it off. Like uncontrollable, insoluble fucking crying. So I will say that first. So if I get choked up at any point of this, I'm going to try to be as happy-go-lucky Grande as I can. If I start to fucking cry, please don't make fun of me. Or if you do, please make it, kind making fun of me. But this, in my opinion, is even arguably the best Jim Carrey movie, like the best movie he's in. It's this or my number 1 for sure. But Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is one of the all-time great, in my opinion, movies. Of course, directed by Michael Gondry, who wanted to do a really good movie called Be Kind, Rewind. But this movie right here really taps into the whole ideas of relationships. And if you go through a bad breakup, there's this kind of technique that you can do in this movie where you can have that person erased from your memory. I never dated you. I never met you. I never loved you. Bam, erased in an overnight procedure. And Jim Carrey, basically, he's dating Kate Winslet in this film, and Kate Winslet goes and gets him erased from her memory after they break up. And then Jim Carrey finds out about this. He's told to stay away from her. You can't go near her. She wanted to forget you, respect her wishes. And Jim Carrey is just beside himself. I spent the last however many years of my life with her. I loved her. Of course, the character name, her name is Clementine. And in each scene in this movie, I thought it was interesting. They had Kate Winslet change her hair color. One scene it's blue, one it's green, one it's red, to really kind of pop with verisimilitude. I think this is a beautiful looking film. Michel Gondry and the visuals, it's stunning. The music in this movie, even the opening scene, and I need your loving like the sunshine, but everybody's got to learn sometime. As Jim Carrey's crying in his car. This is a tough movie to get through if you're emotional like me. I get emotional. I swear to you, I literally couldn't finish the rewatch. That's how fucking sad I got watching it. And I got to say that I think a lot of this because of Jim Carrey's performance, right? Playing... people call me sexist or whatever. I like the idea of looking at this through the guy's eyes more than the female's eyes. And I know people will throw their stones. I just personally like it more because Kate Winslet goes and erases him. We don't see her whole ordeal going through the procedure in the dream, her erasing him. It's really all through his point of view and him telling her, hey, you erased me. And she's, hey, I'm sorry. I'm impulsive and all these things. And the rest of the movie, them two trying to work together to stop the progress, to stop the procedure, to eradicate the progress of the procedure so he cannot forget her. And I love the two of them together. They do a great job, but I like that it is all from his perspective. And there's a scene where he's driving home and he's yelling at her, Clem, it's all falling apart. And you literally see cars and buildings and things falling apart next to her. And it's all just a piece of shit ending to this piece of shit story as he breaks down in the middle of the street and is just really just beside himself because she erased him. She no longer loved him. And it's a really emotional performance from Jim Carrey. And I love probably my favorite scene in this entire movie. The one that gets me every time, especially lately, is the scene towards the end where, of course, it works in reverse chronological order of how they met, right? It starts on the last day where they broke up and it goes all the way back to the last thing you see is the day they met. And he's sitting on the boardwalk and he's eating his lunch and he sees her with the orange sweatshirt that he says, I noticed then, but I learned to hate over time. And the two of them sitting on the boardwalk together, the steps. And he looks at her and he says, hey, you just took my food without saying anything. And she goes, yeah, I know. And my name's Clementine. Don't make any jokes. He goes, oh, the whole Huckleberry Hound, that sort of thing. And oh, my darling Clementine. The two of them kind of beating around the bush until finally Kate Winslet brings it up. Like, this is it, Joel. This is, once this day ends, you're not going to remember me. You're going to wake up tomorrow and you're never going to remember me. What do we do? And I love what Jim Carrey says back. And the way he says it, I swear to you, when I see it, it makes me cry. He smiles and he says, let's enjoy it. And the next scene is the two of them. I'm getting emotional. I'm trying not to fucking cry. They're on the beach and it's just a beautiful scene as the two of them kind of enjoy their first date together for the last time. And it's such an emotional scene as the two of them, hey, I'm supposed to run out. And the two of them hug and embrace and she whispers to him, meet me in Montauk. And I love the whole point of message of this film where in the next morning he has this impulsive, I'm fucking crying. I can't. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. He's gets this impulsive thing to get on the train to Montauk and embraces her. And you get the idea that even though they erased each other, you cannot erase love. And even though there are things about her that she won't like and things about him that he won't like and vice versa, there's always going to be the clash in a relationship. You truly can never erase true love. And that's why I love the whole point of this movie. And I think that Jim Carrey really had to hit emotional states to make this. Of course, there's a famous video out there where he's crying his eyes out before they did a shot. And Kate Winslet is looking at him like, what is going on? Like, this guy is being unprofessional. Jim Carrey really had to hit himself to be emotional for this movie. And I appreciate that personally because it's gotten there for me too, where I absolutely just burst out into it too. And I can even show, I know probably people wondering like, why do you get so emotional? I'll be honest, just a past relationship I had this past year. I remember at one point, I guess I don't want to get personal, but I guess in relationships, 9 out of 10 times they're not going to work, right? 9 out of 10 times we go in knowing that I like this person. I think she's beautiful, or, for whatever, whoever your significant other, you think they're good looking, attractive, smart, funny, whatever draws you to somebody, whatever it may be. We go in, but 9 times out of 10, it isn't going to work. 9 times out of 10, we aren't going to end up happily ever after at the fucking wedding altar and all these beautiful things and children and whatever. 9 times out of 10, it's not going to happen that way. But we all go in anyway because, fools fall in love, I guess. But, there are always going to be these imperfections, right? There's things that they even say it to each other. There's going to be things about me that you don't like, and there'll be things about you that I don't like. Okay, it's okay. That's what it's like. And I remember, like I was going to say, a personal was this girl I was dating for like a good 7-month period. There was a big glaring issue with our relationship, and I won't. If some of my closest friends know, there was a big glaring issue with it, and at one point I remember she asked me. She said, what do we do when it's all over? And what do we do in the meantime? And I said to her, I quoted this movie. I said, let's enjoy it. Let's enjoy each other. And all the great times I had with her, when you watch this movie and all the great times he had with Clementine, it makes me sad. It's a really, it's a great one. I love this movie. I'm going to get into comments. I'm sorry. I don't mean to break character here. Jim Carrey, number 23, baby. I get it, John. Yeah, no, no, I swear to you, I can't get through this one. This is one that every time makes me fucking cry. Eternal Sunshine is sad, very emotional. Could have been a Black Mirror episode. That's a good point. It really could have. I haven't seen Eternal Sunshine, but I do love Be Kind Rewind. That Be Kind Rewind's great. I love Be Kind Rewind. For me, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is still a top 50. Everything in the top notch: female lead, male lead, direction, screenplay, cinematography, supporting cast, and musical score. Completely agree. It's arguably his best film. It really is. The plot twist of Eternal Sunshine sounds like a Twilight Zone plot twist. Yeah, no, it really is. It kind of does. You're good, nothing wrong with you. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, guys. I try to control my. I don't even mean to make it personal. I got to be honest. Like, this is a movie where it gets me, and especially recently, like all the shit that went down with me, it really, I couldn't even get through it. Nope, True Love. I agree with that, Pat. I guess maybe I'm naive or whatever, but I believe that too. And they even, there's side characters in the movie where that's the case too. Like, I didn't even mention Kirsten Dunst, Mark Ruffalo, Elijah Wood, Tom Wilkinson. They're all in this movie as supporting roles. It's basically the same story playing out, but in a different way. Whereas Kirsten Dunst fell in love with Tom Wilkinson. I don't know why, but she did. But Mark Ruffalo loves her. And there's this whole triangle going on there. And even though after she got her memory erased, she's still falling in love with Tom Wilkinson, even though she thinks he's a total stranger now. I like that whole motif. I love Jim Carrey's prayer and Bruce Almighty. Makes me cry every time. Yeah, no, it's a good one. Anyone who has gone through a breakup can relate to this movie. Sad things don't always work out. It's true. Yeah, it's the bitterest pill to swallow. But I think there's really few movies that hit on the importance of relationships and importance of, talking about how you really feel, right? Like on paper, it's like, oh, this looks like the perfect couple, but I'm sure even the perfect couple, there are things they don't like, that do like, and all these, I really do believe it. And that's why this movie really hits home for me. And I'm sorry, I kind of started almost crying. I apologize. Misfit number one, Andrew, man, welcome. Eternal Sunshine is one of the most beautiful films ever made. Completely agree. It's such an emotional roller coaster and unique way to tell a love story. I've never looked at Jim Carrey the same way again. I agree. I think Jim Carrey really had to hit an emotional stride in this film that he had never hit before or since. I think this is definitely his most emotional role. And one that, like I said, like the scene where he's in the car at the beginning crying, I have been there. I have been there after being dumped. It is exactly that. I mean, he really did a great job. What did you think of Yes Man? I like Yes Man. I always considered Yes Man to be a movie that tries to recapture the gold that is Liar Liar. It's similar, right? Because you have a guy that can't say a lie, and you have a guy that can't say anything but yes. I always felt it was sort of trying to bank off that, but it didn't have quite the same impact, quite the same magic. I still like the movie, though, and it would be my top 15. It would definitely, I think it's a fun, good movie. I like it. Wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend. I think Jim Carrey does a good job in that as well. I really like Yes Man as well. So that was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind at number 2. I guess we can go through the quick list re-ranking, and then we'll get to our number 1 pick. Of course, at number 10, we had Bruce Almighty. Number 9, Liar Liar. Number 8, Man on the Moon. Number 7, Batman Forever. Number 6, Ace Ventura Pet Detective. Number 5, Dumb and Dumber. Number 4, The Mask. Number 3, Cable Guy. Number 2, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And finally, coming in at number 1, I think people are probably going to be able to see this coming, but it is definitely my number 1, and it is none other than The Truman Show. Yes, The Truman Show from 1998. Let me get the poster up here. My all-time favorite Jim Carrey performance. I got one more comment before I get in. Oh, 2 more comments. In the film Bruce Almighty, they used the theme song "Are You Ready for a Miracle," which was also used in an underrated Steve Martin film called Leap of Faith. Love Steve Martin. I mix up the titles Eternal Sunshine and Little Miss Sunshine. My mom did too. It's funny you mentioned that. Before I get into the number 1, my mom, she said, "Oh, what are you watching for the Jim Carrey show?" I said, "Oh, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind." And she said, "Oh, was that the one where they were all in the van going?" I was like, "No, that's Little Miss Sunshine." That's so funny. My mom did the same thing. That's great. I'm glad that you two think alike with there. The Truman Show. Let me give a brief plot synopsis. An insurance salesman discovers his whole life is actually a television reality show. Yes, The Truman Show. My personal favorite Jim Carrey performance, my personal favorite Jim Carrey movie. It's this or Eternal Sunshine for best movie. but I think I might give it to Truman Show over to it's close. Maybe because the fact that I could watch Truman Show and the Eternal Sunshine, I just cry like a fucking, oh my God, it's bad. But like I said, it's no way to, discredit Eternal Sunshine, if you will. But Truman Show, to me, is Jim Carrey's best performance, and it is the movie that he 100% should have won the Oscar. He should have won Best Actor at the Academy Awards. And I do believe that it was a situation where the Academy didn't want to take him seriously. I really believe that. He didn't even get a nomination. I believe the Academy saw that talent in a Robin Williams, when it comes to comedic actors that got nominated for Academy Awards. And Robin Williams eventually won, actually the year before this, for Good Will Hunting. He was even nominated for Good Morning Vietnam. He was nominated for Dead Poet Society, and he won for Good Will Hunting. And even, I believe he might even been nominated for 1 Hour Photo. This movie, though, Jim Carrey should have not only been nominated, but he should have won Best Actor at the Academy Awards. And I also think this movie probably should have won Best Picture that year. That's how good The Truman Show is. Basically, it tells the story of Truman Burbank, who is played by Jim Carrey, and he has this very weird life where every morning it's almost like the beginning of a reality show. He says hi to his neighbors. In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And he has all these neighbors that hold up these trash cans with cameras on them. Everything that Peter Weir does to direct this film. The interesting camera placement, right? Camera placement on the button, camera placement on the trash can, camera placement all around town, any place where they can get these hidden cameras to capture and glimpse every minute and every waking moment of Jim Carrey's life in this movie, as he is unsatisfied with his life in this reality that has actually been created for him, but for the entertainment of others that watch this as a 24/7 reality show at home. And it's all run by, of course, Christoph, which is played by, of course, Ed Harris in the film, and some of his under lackeys played by Paul Giamatti. Cool enough. Always love to see Paul Giamatti in this film. And we go through everyday life with Truman as he is so unsatisfied. He does not love his wife, and he felt that it was a forced marriage because it actually was. They wanted her, as in the script, to marry him, and he does marry her. His best friend, who is always there for him, as the six-pack of beers, and hey buddy, let's go out for a walk, let's talk about this, that, and the other. I love that. I think it's just great stuff between the two of them. But Jim Carrey yearns to get out of there. He yearns to get out of this small town life, and I think in a lot of ways this is a movie about divorcing yourself from what people want for you. I think in a lot of ways there's a point in all our lives where we have to move on from what people want for us, whether it be our parents, whether it be our siblings, whether it be our friends, family, whatever. There's a point where you have to get up and say, I'm going to choose and decide for myself. And whether I fall flat on my face or whether I get up and stride, I'm going to decide for myself. And he wants to go to Fiji because his dream girl lives there. Sylvia is her name. And he encountered her one night where she told him that it's all a show, it's all a rouge. And her father came on the beach, which was just an actor, and said, hey, we're moving to Fiji. And every day he buys these magazines where he kind of tries to make out her face to remember what she looked like. And he even calls up Fiji asking for her. Do you have a Sylvia Smith? Do you have a Sylvia Sussman? He goes down the line just trying to find who she is. That's how much he loved her. In that 1 minute, he could feel that connection that he hadn't felt in all of these years with his wife, who he did not love. And of course, just all the brilliant things, the product placement in this film, the Kaiser chicken and the hot cocoa mix and all these things, making it like a reality show. That's how they pay the bills. That's how they keep the lights on. Very smart. I thought Peter Weir did a great job directing this film. And funny enough, where he directed Robin Williams in a movie where he was nominated for Best Actor in Dead Poet Society, here he directs Jim Carrey in a movie where I think he should have won the Best Actor award at the Oscars. This goes to show you what I think of the Oscars. I think it's a disgrace to not even nominate the guy for a movie like this. But I think this is a wonderful film, and I think Jim Carrey, just the amount of heart he poured into this character, how much he makes you root for him as this movie goes on, is truly inspirational. You really, really are rooting for him to get out of there and get to Fiji and get to the fucking long lost love that he believes is his soulmate. There's some great scenes in this, of course. I always loved towards the end where he's on the boat and, he tells Paul Giamatti, Christoph, Ed Harris's character, he tells Paul Giamatti, start the rain, increase the winds. And he's afraid of the water, his character, but he has to overcome his fear and all the winds and the water. And Jim Carrey's performance as he's just like, is that the best you can do? Yelling at him. just amazing. Just the emotion he makes you feel in this movie is truly that of a great actor. You know, we talk about Jim Carrey as a great entertainer, a great comedian, a great laugh out loud guy, but it's in this movie where I see the actor just really makes you just root for him as he is sailing along. And I love even small details and small characters like Paul Giamatti crying, you know, like he's going to drown and he doesn't even care. I can't do this. And of course, he reaches the end, hits the wall, and oh my God, he finds the steps. And of course, Christoph tries to talk to him. Hey, I was here when you took your first steps. I was here when you lost your first tooth. And don't you see? We love you, Truman. We need you to stay. You're, you know, part of a television station that brings hope to millions all around the world every day. And you have to stay, Truman. You just can't leave. And Jim Carrey, which is one of my favorite line deliveries of his entire career, he turns around and everyone is on the edge of their seat. What's he going to say? You know, in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. You know, and he takes a bow and walks out and he decides, yes, you know, I don't know what's out there, but it's better than what's being controlled for me in here because this isn't living. This is really just being given all the things that other people want me to do. And I'm not interested in that. I want to go see the world. I want to go explore. I want to go see my dream girl. And in this movie, he is able to do that at the end. And I love Truman Show for that. I think it's the all-time, I would say that is the all-time best Jim Carrey movie and all-time best Jim Carrey performance. I really, top to bottom, love this movie. Just absolutely love it. Always thought it was just such a wonderful performance from Jim Carrey in a movie. Like I said, you know, I've said a few times tonight, there's nobody could have pulled off Ace Ventura like Jim Carrey. There's nobody could have pulled off Liar Liar like Jim Carrey. I don't think anybody could have made you feel the emotion that you feel in this movie. While there are some funny Jim Carrey lines in this, it's the rooting for him and the emotion and the is that the best you can do at the end, you know, just great stuff. I love Jim Carrey in this. This is a movie where if somebody says, why do you love Jim Carrey? I'll say two words. I'll say Truman Show. I love Truman Show. Truman Show, my number one Jim Carrey movie. So let's get back to comments. I saw some comments here. Let's see. Haven't seen Truman Show either. Highly recommend. It's not letting me click on comments. Oh boy. I don't know. I don't want to lose the internet again. Here we go. Haven't seen Truman Show either. Love Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Jim Carrey at his best. Very funny. What a great movie. Truman Show, so ahead of its time. Just awesome. I agree. I think it's the best movie he ever did. Him getting struck by lightning multiple times horrified me. And his line, he was born on the show. He came to defy on it too. Truman Show deserves first place. Great choice. Thank you so much, Tom. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I love this movie. Highly, highly recommend for people who haven't seen it. I saw Trenchy didn't. The plot of Truman Show is very similar to The Twilight Zone. Yes, I've seen that one. I know what you're saying. Plot is very similar to a classic sci-fi movie. Also, this show coined the real medical condition where after the movie, people started to believe that they were constantly filmed every second of their lives. You know, absolutely. It is very iconic that Truman's last name, Burbank, was the city where Universal Studios is. Yes, absolutely. JP says, sing on the boat is in the storm the best. Absolutely. I was once a sailor man. You know, just he is great. This is like the number one movie of Jim Carrey because of him. It really is. I absolutely love the movie around it. It's a brilliant movie around it, but it's his performance that really takes it home. Honorable mention for Jim Carrey's performance in The Grinch. Carrey has it all. I agree. The Grinch would be close. The movie, the performance, definitely in a consideration to make this. Great number one pick. Thank you so much. Yeah, so that is the top 10 Jim Carrey movies. I'll go over the list one more time. Bruce Almighty, number 10. Liar Liar, number 9. Man on the Moon, number 8. Batman Forever, number 7. Ace Ventura, number 6. Dumb and Dumber, number 5. Number 4 was number 4 was The Mask. Number 3, Cable Guy. Number 2, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And number 1, The Truman Show. Yes, Jim Carrey, I think one of the all-time great talents, and somebody I'm glad that we got to do an actor spotlight for. Now we can add him to the list of, you know, Robin Williams and Kurt Russell and John Candy, and now we've done Jim Carrey. Now, one thing I'd like to say before we hop off here, I was doing polls, right, of actors that we want to see in the future. I did Chris Tucker versus Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey won by a small margin. But I want to know, is there actors you guys would like to see me cover? If they have anybody off the top of your head, you know, that's fine. But if there's actors that people would want me to cover, I would definitely consider it. The one I've been in the back of my mind, I want to do Michael Keaton. I want to do Michael Keaton. I actually really wanted to do Chris Tucker as well, but I would definitely be open to hearing suggestions. That doesn't mean necessarily I'm going to take them. I'm not taking recommendations, but I'll hear your suggestion out for sure. So if people have ones that actors that they'd like me to cover, do top 10 for in the future, I'd love to do that. I like doing these shows. I've only done 4 of them, but they seem to be really fun shows, really engaging shows with the audience here. So definitely if people want to, give me suggestions, I am all ears. What will your next ranking be? We're going to be doing wrapping up, and this is, people are not going to like this. Next week, we're going to be doing Teen Titans Season 5, the series finale, of course, and the TV movie Trouble in Tokyo. I've been working on that for the past year. We've been doing Teen Titans. We did Seasons 1 through 4 ranked. The next week, we're going to be ranking Season 5 and the Trouble in Tokyo movie. That will be the last week of Horror Burnout, where we return that next week with Video Nasties. Yes, we'll be Video Nasties Volume 3, where I take 3 Video Nasties and deep dive into them, why they were on the Nasties list, why I like them, plot, synopsis, direction, all that good stuff. So we are definitely going to be doing that next week for Teen Titans, and we will get there when we get there. Great show, John. Thank you so much, Pat. Appreciate it. Ranking typo, no worries. Cover Clancy Brown. Interesting one. That's not one I would ever think to do. You said you want to do Stallone, I remember. Stallone would be a great one to do. Man, I love to do Stallone. Copland, Rocky, fucking Cobra, Rambo. So many good Stallone performances. I could do Daylight. I love Stallone. I would love to do a Stallone one. That I might highly consider that. I'll tell you what, people give me suggestions and maybe I'll do a poll and we'll see, but again, it's going to be a while before that happens, but definitely this was an episode I actually had to cancel. This was the week where I fucking had a life crisis and I canceled this episode. This is a really kind of a makeup episode, so I apologize for that. Tom Hanks Spotlight. Absolutely. I could do Tom Hanks Spotlight. My number one, people already know, is Big. But I mean, of course, Castaway, Forrest Gump, Philadelphia, fucking so many great ones. I always love The Terminal. People hate that movie. Teen Titans Go. Teen Titans Go, the chant, not the show. Teen Titans Go. Top 10 recently divorced Adam Sandler characters. Oh shit, I don't know about that. Oh, what a Titan show that makes me want to shove bananas in my ears. Okay, yeah, see, not a fan. No worries. A couple I would be interested are Christian Slater, Keith Sutherland, and John Travolta. Would be cool to hear your thoughts on just suggestions. Thank you. Wow, all of those are really good ideas. Christian Slater's not one that ever really would come to my mind for doing a top 10. I love True Romance, but I love Con Air. I love Travolta too, man. Travolta and Slater, Con Air would be right. I mean, I fucking love that. Broken Arrow. I love Bill Murray too. Bill Murray would be a great one, man. Wow. See, now you're giving me all these good ones. So yeah, I'm going to have to take these into consideration. I'll tell you what, I'll take these into consideration. I'll do a poll in like a month and we'll vote on them then. And then we'll see who wins the poll. That's it. Like I said, Chris Tucker got a lot of votes when we did Chris Tucker, Jim Carrey. A lot of people said, oh, it's not fair to Chris Tucker. Bullshit. Chris Tucker got a lot of votes. People like Chris Tucker, man. Chris Tucker's awesome. Clancy Brown is a good one. Maybe Viggo Mortensen. That Viggo would be an awesome one to do. Christian Slater, Ron Perlman would 100% help you if you ever needed to go through every single Titans Go episode. Well, I am not going to be going through that, but I did promise that I'd finish season 5 next week. So next week, we'll finish Teen Titans season 5. And here we got, speaking of Sutherland, have you seen Flatliners? I have never seen that, actually. Any good? Interesting fact, I watched The Terminal for the entire COVID. Oh, really? It's funny enough, I watched it when I was sick in the hospital with COVID. I watched it on my phone. It's funny, people always complain about the length of that movie because it's so long. Basically a 2.5 hour movie with Tom Hanks basically in a plane terminal. But I love that movie. I mean, he buys all the Whoppers with the quarters, and I don't know, I always loved that movie. I thought The Terminal was quite good. But like I said, I'll take the one I was thinking was Michael Keaton, but now you guys are giving me all sorts of good ones. I don't know. Maybe Christian Slater would be a different one to do. I know people have mentioned Raul Julia. When I was talking about Addams Family a couple episodes ago, that's somebody I'd love to do a top 10 on because I haven't seen that many Raul Julia films. So yeah, definitely something I like to do, actor spotlights like this. The only thing is they're very hard shows to prep for. I have to watch 8 to 10 movies in a week. So it's definitely not easy to prep for, but I do like doing them. So definitely I will keep all of these suggestions in mind. Original Flatliners is great. Okay. So we definitely have a Flatliners fan, but all right, everybody. That has been Grande's Graveyard. That has been the top 10 Jim Carrey performances. Flatliners, the original, of course, great movie. Okay. So everybody, in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. We will catch you next week only on the Graveyard. Too sweet, peace, and we'll catch you next time. Have a nice weekend, everybody.